Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activity. Our topic today is dads or fathers, brought to you by Peggy Spear with the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. And it probably should be Dad's because she always comes up with something unusual. I can't wait to see what Peggy has for us today. It's all yours, Miss Peggy. We can't hear you. We could go 30 minutes without.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, it's been a day, you guys. Is it a full moon? Because I feel like everything today has just been one of those days.
Oh, we're all right there with you, Peggy.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad there's safety in numbers. Okay, here we go. Today, well, part of just the kookiness of me planning, I thought this weekend was Father's Day, had a bit of a panic. It's not Father's Day, it's next week. So we're getting a jump on it. We're getting you all in the mood for Father's Day. I had this morning, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing Father's Day. And I didn't send my dad anything. All right, well, it was actually harder to find pictures in our collection of father-son, father-child related topics, but we did have quite a bit of photographs, both by women and by men. And so some of the photographs, most of the photographs we're looking at, there isn't a lot of art history to them. Some of them were just photographs people took because of the moment they saw, and it was kind of candid. But nonetheless, the images have something we can connect to. This particular image we're looking at is our first photograph. This is one of the more famous pictures we're going to look at today. And it is of two men, Andrew and Jamie Wyeth. Do those names ring any bells to you?
Andrew Wyeth does, but I don't know why.
So Andrew Wyeth is a very famous painter. His father, N.C. Wyeth, was an even more famous painter. And we've looked at a painting by N.C. Wyeth of Benjamin Franklin coming to town. It was the portrait, or it was the painting of Ben Franklin with his tricorn hat walking past what would be his future wife's house. Yeah. That is N.C. Wyeth. Andrew Wyeth is the man, the older man on the left, and his son, Jamie Wyeth, is off of his shoulder. So this photographer, his name is Francesco Scabulo, he was very known in his day as a photographer of fashion and the famous, particularly photographing for Cosmopolitan magazine, really wonderful covers and fashion. He would often select his own models, which included Rene Russo, Brooke Shields. He had a very keen eye for high fashion models. And that was really what he was known for. And he felt his photographs of entertainers, of the famous, his portraits, didn't get the same type of dues that his fashion photography did. So this is an example of one of his famous entertainers' portraits of these two painters. And these painters were known in their day for what they did. So can you explain or kind of tell what feeling you get? Do you pick up on their connection? What kind of, walk me through what you're seeing here?
A home feeling?
Homey, you feel home?
Yeah, looks like a homestead behind him.
Mm-hmm. David, what makes it feel to you like it's got that home feeling to you?
Well, there's a two-story home in the background.
Do you feel that they're close, that they maybe are distant in relationship? Do you get a sense of what their relationship might be?
Yeah.
And what's that? What do you feel?
I'd say father-son.
Father-son.
Good relationship, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they were actually very, very close. They were friends, just as much friends as they were father-son, which was really wonderful for their dynamic. And the home that you're seeing, I couldn't find that it said this, but based on everything else surrounding them, they owned their family still does own a plot of land that they've made home. NCY bought it in 1911, and it's continued through their family in Brandywine Valley, Pennsylvania. It's Chad's Ford is the name of the area. And so NCY bought the land, put a home and a studio there. That is where he taught Andrew how to paint. And then Andrew did the same thing with Jamie. And Jamie actually didn't even go to school after 6th grade. He was home taught by a tutor at home, but mostly by art teachers, because Andrew, his father, felt that traditional education wasn't necessarily important for an artist. So they worked very closely together in the studio on that property. And then even now, Jamie still lives there part of the year. So I don't know if that's the exact house that they lived in, or if it's just another part of the land, because it's in a very historic part of Pennsylvania. That's where the Battle of Brandywine was. There's a lot of American history tied to that land, so that there could easily have been older homesteads on that property that are inhabited or not by their family.
So did Jamie become an artist as well?
He did, and he initially was not as well received as his father and his grandfather, because his style was a little different than what the public was expecting. Jamie aligned more with his grandfather, painting things that were of, let me think, like portraiture or natural landscapes. His style was more in line with his grandfather, and his father was more direct in his painting. So there was a little bit, he was influenced by his father, more alike as his grandfather. He had done portraits of JFK. They have a museum where, like, often these two men and sometimes NC Wyeth will exhibit together their paintings. So he's kind of living in the shadow of his family, but he was an artist and is an artist very much in his own right.
Okay.
And I think he's a professor now at Elizabethtown College in Pennsylvania. So he teaches art.
Cool.
It looks to me like Andrew is saying to himself, should I remodel? What do you think, Jamie? It's
a very
stylized.
Yeah. He's lost in his thoughts.
Yeah, deep in thought.
Where Jamie is very directly looking at it.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny portrait, but you do sense a closeness to them, I think, because they're physically close to each other, but it's almost as if Andrew is kind of nested into Jamie. You get this warmness to them, even though their faces aren't showing any sort of smile. And that was very characteristic of the photographer, Louise Nevelson, an artist we looked at before. She's done lunar landscape. It's that black, larger than life sculpture that had a juggling pin and a chair seat. We looked at it kind of recently. She was photographed by this photographer as well, and she said that the photographer had a poetic essence of capturing the subject, and so you sense that poeticness here. We're getting a sense of their personalities. They seem kind of chill. It doesn't seem, they might seem kind of in their head with that distant look, thinking, maybe creating, planning, plotting what the next composition will look like. A denim blazer feels kind of funky. You're able to pick up a little bit on their personalities without very much being shown. I think it's a very sweet portrait of the two of them.
It is. I'm sure.
This was taken in 1982. It wasn't printed until later in the decade. And in 1981, the photographer was diagnosed with manic depression. And he said that he very much contributed his creative genius to the manic episodes he had.
Wow.
So that's just something kind of interesting, especially with mental health, using that energy for something creative and positive and viewing it as such. So anyway, I think a beautiful portrait. This is a portrait of a famous couple, or a famous family. So very much in keeping with the style of this photographer. Our next portrait is of someone we don't know. But can you tell me what you see?
A father and two daughters.
Yes.
Any guesses on where they might be? The title is of no help.
It looks like
a
they're
retaining
Looking
wall.
over a bridge thing at a lake.
In a lake.
or seawall.
Say that again, Don.
It might be a seawall, and that's the ocean.
Seawall. Yeah, it's on water. It's in Chicago, so a lake, no beach, or no.
Looks like a highway to me.
A highway. What makes you think that, Nancy? This behind him?
Yeah.
Just the curve of it and everything.
Yeah. It's probably a version of a boardwalk right along one of the beaches in Chicago. But this was taken in Chicago. So this is part of a series the photographer did called Beaches and Parks. And so this is a Chicago beach, and she did not know these people. The series was really constituted of unposed individuals that she just happened across, and in the style of street photography, just snapping the image often from her hip or not even up at her viewfind, just kind of shooting and seeing what she was able to capture. So does anything about this feel posed, or even though it's not posed, does it feel balanced or chaotic? What kind of sense do you get?
Seems very open with the water and the thing.
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah, it feels, oh, go ahead, Yetta.
No, I was going to say, I don't think it's staged because the one kid is playing with dirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're right. It feels like we're kind of not intruding, but happening upon a very private moment with a family.
Yeah. Well, and the layout of the picture that she contrived somehow is that they're in the center with that tower in the background, so everything's really pointing toward them.
Yes, they are definitely the focus of the photograph. And she was really interested in general, but in the series, on not taking necessarily flattering pictures of the individuals, which this might not be the most flattering picture of this little girl kissing her dad, or, even him. He seems kind of not have a scowl on his face, but just kind of in a natural resting position. She was more interested in the connections between the individuals, not necessarily the individual itself. So do you get that sense, or do you feel like you're more interested in the individual versus the dynamic between? Where are you finding yourself?
Well, it looks as if the man or the father, he's the one who is sharp. The other side.
Say that again?
The man, he's the one who's in focus. Everything else seems a little out of focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's really focusing on, I think, like you said, because it's so sharp, the connection between the child and the father, this pair right here. You know there's more kids, but she's not engaging in whatever that affectionate moment is between the two of them. So it really is, like you said, because the crown of her head is blurry. Barbara Crane wanted you to focus on right here.
Of course, we say it's a daughter that he's holding. It could be his wife.
It could be. The notes
Because if you look at the outline, you see the girl with the ponytail's hair, and you see the outline of the lady's dress. It's a long dress, and she's taller than the girl, so it might be his wife.
It could be. Going on the notes in our photograph database, it was labeled children, but
Okay.
She didn't know these people, so it could very much be she assigned him as a child or whatever.
Yeah,
and we don't know. I tried to notice, because you very much can notice his wedding band.
Mhm.
It's a nice break in what are darker shadows and darker tones within the photograph. And you can see her hand here. That might not be the hand that she's wearing her wedding band, but you can't see any jewelry like that. That's just a scratch on the film.
Okay.
But it's an interesting highlight that his hand has that wedding band on it, which I think reinforces that idea of a family. Versus, I don't know, it might be a little bit of a different story if he didn't have the wedding band on it. What do you think?
Mm.
That reinforces that he didn't just pick these girls up on the beach.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
I think I will agree that it's probably his wife, the way he has the arm around
Mhm.
her. I don't think you would do that to your child. He's just, it's leaning. It's a
Yeah.
heavy arm on the shoulder. You don't do that to a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
It feels like a very private moment that we are catching a glimpse of.
Mhm.
And a very fleeting moment, something that, she might have just leaned in and kissed him and that was it. And then they continue looking at the beach. So we're catching, she didn't, like we said, she didn't stage it. She caught it right at the perfect time and then was able to frame it so quickly in a way that really highlights what that moment is between the two. So our curator said that this particular series of photographs is a grand sociological study on public activity. And so in this, that's just the curator's way of saying, you just happen to catch just life happening.
Yeah.
So
Little girl looks like she's either looking at fish jumping or a sailboat or something.
yeah. Yeah, they're just, maybe on an evening walk and they happen to do this every night, or this was a special day. We know nothing about the scenario, but we know that it's a relatable scenario. I'm sure you've gone on walks with family like this when you're at the shore or in your neighborhood. You might have a lake you walk around or whatever. So while it's Chicago, it has that appeal to it being recognized, or to you putting yourself in that scenario anywhere.
Mhm.
All right, so we're going to go to another female photographer, Carlotta Corcoran.
Oh.
And we've looked at artwork of hers before. She taught at the Texas Women's University in Denton for a very long time. She taught art history. And it wasn't until she got there that she picked up a camera. She wasn't a photographer. Her training was in education and fabric design. So photography was not what her training was initially in. She hung with the Stieglitz crowd. She was really experimental with light and with abstractions within photography. But the pictures we're looking at from her today are not what put her on the map in terms of artistic practice. These are just really sweet. These are negatives, so these aren't actually printed on paper. You can see the black lining of the negative. These are only about 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So this is deceiving. We're looking at it large, but it's not developed. But there are two images I'm going to show you, and it seems to be of the same man. But a very, again, intimate moments of a father with their child.
Mm-hmm.
So what sense or what emotion do you feel when you're looking at this particular image?
He's very happy.
Happy?
Yeah.
What makes you
Happy?
Well, he's kind of
He's smiling.
smiling, looking at his baby.
Yeah, and proud.
Proud,
Yes.
maybe. Yeah.
And yet what gives you that sense?
It's again that little smile and the way he's just looking at her,
Yeah.
He's say, hey, look what I have here.
It's like, again, you're peeking in on a moment that he's not doing this for the camera. It feels to me like a very genuine reaction to holding the baby.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a lot of pictures my wife has from her family of the 50s,
Uh-huh.
because it looks like very much like a Texan with that clapboard house,
Yep.
and because he's very, I don't know, he's not the Western Texan. He's more of the city, suburban type of
Yeah.
Texan.
What gives you that impression?
It just the way he's dressed, the way his haircut is.
He feels
Just-
pretty fashionable for
Yeah.
too fashionable for a farm, maybe.
Yeah.
And he's got an ink pen in his pocket, so he's
Mhm.
either an engineer or works with accounting or something, maybe.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
but
and
you
the-
have to remember during these days, men wore a lot more ties
Yeah.
and dress slacks than they did jeans.
Exactly.
No, I think you're right. That's a really great point. But I think you pointed out, or you recognize he's dressed, even though it's more than just the tie and the
Mhm.
nicer slacks. He's got the tie clip or the tie charm, necklace,
Mhm.
and then a ring. And so if he were doing, and the pen you pointed out, Don, so if he were doing roughnecking or more physical work, you wouldn't wear those types of things.
Yeah.
And he's
And his
so
haircut,
focused on
that
the
was-
child, not on the camera.
Mm-hmm. It feels, it doesn't feel staged. It doesn't feel like they're posing for the camera. I mean, I'm sure he's dressed a little, he knows his picture's being taken, but it doesn't feel contrived. And that baby looks pretty zonked out,
Mhm.
eyes closed.
Very
I know
comfortable.
this is only a
Yeah, very
negative, but,
comfortable. Yeah.
say that again?
Baby's very comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
And
it,
you-
Yes.
I was going to say, you sense the love from the father, just the way he's holding the baby.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and his focus, his eye focus.
Yeah, well, we'll learn, it looks like, that this isn't his first rodeo, because in the next photograph, and and the brightness of this, granted it is a negative, but it feels bright and happy, and that bright light contributes to the happy feeling that all of you are pointing out between the connection of the two. So, this looks like a pretty young baby. Well, it looks like he's got another little bug at home, a little bit older, not much older, but a little older.
Mhm.
And this is
Take you in
bath
the
time.
bath.
Who remembers or being in the bath with siblings and your parents were giving you a bath, or who remembers giving the baths? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
some of the most fun, I feel, and stress, depending, happens around baths.
One of my counselors in graduate school said that the most intimate time when children are most apt to tell you the truth is in the bath.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
Mhm. Because they are literally and figuratively naked,
Yeah.
and they feel more comfortable sharing intimacies in the bath. I thought
I mean, that
pretty
makes sense.
interesting
And they're
too.
trusting you're going to take care of them in the water. I mean, that you're
Yes.
you're there with them. Yeah, that makes sense. And look at his little face, or her. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. They're just locked eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so sweet. But it looks like it's the same man. And can you, what indications might suggest it is the same man?
The wireless glasses.
His hairstyle
In his
is very
hair.
similar.
Yeah.
It
He's
looks
wearing-
like, oh, go ahead.
He's wearing a belt, even though he's got his shirt
Mhm.
off.
Yeah.
Actually, his build is very similar to his physical build.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get the impression that if this baby's sitting up and pretty engaged, she's probably, 1.5-ish around there, where this little baby looks pretty new, pretty fresh.
Mhm. Yeah.
So they're close in age. And it's two very different moments, but two very, everyday moments. Holding the baby like that is an everyday situation, picture or no picture. And then these, what looks like might be a chat happening in the bathroom. It's just the beauty of everyday life with children.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, the photographer didn't have children of her own, but was very interested in these parent relation dynamics that she would photograph with people. And portraiture wasn't her main bread and butter, but she capture using light she was really interested in. I mean, again, it's darker because we're in an interior, but it's speaking to me what feels like the end of the day, where it's, you know, it's still a little bright, but we're winding down. It's maybe a quieter moment right now. And light plays a role in it.
Peggy, how big is this? Is this another small picture?
Yeah, this is a negative, so it's not a developed,
Okay.
or it's not a printed image, so it's 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch.
Okay. Thank you.
We have to go. Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll see you
Steve.
tomorrow,
See you
folks.
tomorrow.
Thank you. It was good, enjoyable.
Oh, you're going too. Okay.
All right, and we got one more. This is a different photographer. This is Carl Struess. We've looked at quite a few pictures of his in the past. He did portraiture when he was in New York, and then when he moved to California, he did a lot of cinematography with Cecil B. DeMille, and did, you know, stills on set of movies. He did cinematography, moving film, lighting, things like that. So this is not his typical, what he was known for, but he has many pictures like this in his we have his archives here at the museum, actually, of just photographs he snapped throughout his life of life. So we don't know who this person is, but tell me what you see, or what do you feel when you look at this?
Looks rural. Looks like it's out in the country somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
If you look real
Not a
hard, you can,
carrying child, because, you know, don't want to walk through all that dirt water.
Yeah. Or you have a flight risk, and you know in 2 seconds that kid is going to be sopping wet
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
if you turn your back for 1 second.
yes.
I wanted to run off into the water.
Oh yeah, greased pig trying to get them too when they know they shouldn't be doing something. They like wiggle their way out of you.
I like how the top it's like it's framed with the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It's a really good call out, Myra, because it's a photographic technique of kind of framing the image, keeping your eyes within the photograph. And
Yes.
that dark contrast feels kind of dramatic against the white of the little, it looks like a little girl, of the dress and of
Yeah.
the white shirt.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I bet it's a hot day because his handkerchief is hanging out of his back
Yeah.
pocket.
What a
Yeah.
good observation. Yeah. Yeah, that sun, it feels like the sun's beating right down on him, like middle of the day type of sun.
You know that I've seen pictures of my grandfather's farm, and when you have a fence go across the water like that with a pool in the middle, it's usually trying to keep the cows from crossing the stream to get on somebody else's property.
Oh, interesting. What a good attention to detail, Don. I mean, do any of you have memories of doing this with your own children or with your own parents or uncle, just kind of going on an adventure and you didn't know what was going to happen, but you knew as the adult was going to be fun, but God knows what, or as the kid thinking how special this was that you got to spend time with your uncle or your father or something like that.
Oh, thanks.
I remember going on my dad's shoulders was always really, really fun.
For guys, it's a whole lot easier than trying to carry them.
Yes.
Now, mothers will hang on to that hip until their legs drag the ground, but
Oh my gosh. Yeah, every mom's got that like sway to them from the hip crank, the arm out, shoulder out.
yes. And then we need massage therapy when we get to be older. If you look really, really hard, you can see a duck across the pond.
Up here?
Further to the left by the wood. Right there.
Right here?
Uh-huh.
So did I.
Okay.
I
You
can
must have good eyes.
I see a neck.
I can't even tell, so I'm gonna leave it to you, Martha, to be the duck call out on that one.
Oh, oh.
Quack, quack.
Quack,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I wonder if she has bread then to throw at those duckies.
quack, quack.
So these, I think that's it. Yeah. So we didn't have as many mom or dad pictures as we had mom, but we did have a good amount. And a lot of them really felt candid. So, with the exception of the portrait at the very beginning. So just some sweet, as you have 2 weeks ahead of you before Father's Day. However you celebrate Father's Day, these were just some sweet photographs in our collection to that reflect those relationships in the world. So next week we're back with farm life. So we've got going to be a lot of pictures, photographs again of life on the farm.
Oh boy.
So bring your farm stories. We're going to talk about it. All right, y'all. It was good seeing you. Be good. See y'all next week.
All right. Thanks, Peggy.
Oh,
Thank you,
Bye,
Peggy.
Peggy.
Yeah.
Hope you have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye, Peggy. Wow. Okay, let's take a look at what's coming up. Oh boy, Fort Worth Opera, back tomorrow. I don't know how Gail's going to get the program to us, probably email like she did last time, but look forward to it. Should be
Fort Worth Opera tomorrow.
2 or 3 snippets, and then we get to talk about what we see.